Now, we're going to take a look at another kind of camera, the smartphone camera. There's an amazing variety of smartphone cameras available right now, and the quality of the cameras keeps increasing dramatically. More and more features of high-end cameras, both point and shoot and DSLR, are finding their way into cell phone cameras. Of course, models change quickly and features as well, but some things also tend to be present from one generation of cell phone cameras to the next. I'll be going through the settings on two cell phone cameras with you, the iPhone 6s and Samsung Galaxy S6. First, let's look at the settings on the iPhone 6 and begin with the global settings found in the OS setting panel. Scroll down several panels below Music and Videos and find Photos and Cameras and tap. The first setting in this panel is the iPhone photo library, which determines if your images get uploaded to iCloud. The second, My Photo Stream, determines if your images get uploaded automatically and sent to all your iCloud devices, if you have any. The third setting, Upload Burst Photos, determines if your burst photos are uploaded from your photo stream. And the fourth setting, iCloud Photo Sharing, determines if your images will be shared via an album. Then comes the Photos tab. This setting determines if you will see every photo in your library and allows for summarized views for collections and years. Under the Camera tab, Grid turns on the lines that divide the screen in vertical and horizontal thirds. And there are two other options related to video quality and mode: pixels and frames per second for normal video and for slow motion video. The final setting in this section is under the HDR, High Dynamic Range tab, and that allows you to choose whether to keep the original image and the HDR composite image made from the image, or only the HDR composite. We'll explain what that means later on if that doesn't make any sense to you at the moment. When you open the standard camera app that comes with the iPhone, you'll see a row at the bottom of the phone and see 6 labels. 3 of these labels are related to photographs and 3 are related to video. The 3 labels related to photographs are Photo, Square, and Pano. The 3 labels to video are Video, Slow-Mo, and Time-Lapse. You can drag the label over the top of the shutter button and it will turn yellow, indicating it is the currently active category. You can also tap the label and it will automatically move and become current. Under the labels, you'll see the shutter button in the center, and to the left there's an icon that shows an image from your image library. When pressed, the display will shift to your image library. To the right of the shutter button is an icon with 3 overlapping circles like a Venn diagram. When pressed, this takes the user to a set of effects or treatments that can be set to be applied to the image that will be taken. Notice one of the effects in the center is None. This is used to return the camera back to the default treatment, which is none at all. The photo option is the one most used to create most photographs. Within this option, and the 2 other options as well, there are 2 procedures that you use over and over again that are part of taking the photograph. One determines the focus point for the image and the other determines the overall exposure for the image. Let's look at the way to control focus. Tap lightly to choose the point of focus within the rectangular frame. This sets the focus point. Notice that the exposure of the whole image is changed based on the lightness or darkness at this point in the image. You can also hold down your finger lightly on the camera after tapping and lock the focus on that point. You can move the camera to include other parts of your field of view, and the camera will stay focused on the point you chose. The camera sets the exposure according to where you set the focus point. If you don't choose a focus point, the camera chooses both the focus point and the exposure automatically. If you set the focus point by tapping and hold, you can swipe up the screen from the bottom to the top to increase the brightness of the exposure, or you can sweep your finger down the screen from the top to the bottom and decrease the brightness of the exposure. Now back to the labels. Choosing the label Square to the right of Photo takes you into the square mode of the camera. The image of the camera take results from cutting off part of the rectangular image, leaving a square, according to whether the image is in portrait or landscape format. In the portrait mode, it cuts off the top and bottom. In the landscape mode, it cuts off the left and right. The next label to the right of square is pano. Pano allows the user to take a panoramic photograph. It's a mode in which the camera moves from left to right, and everything that occurs in the field of view winds up being in the photograph. The user follows a real or imagined straight line around the horizontal center of the room or space and starts by turning the camera very slowly from left to right, moving slowly in a circular motion until the camera reaches the end of the shot or the point of origin. At the top of the camera, in each of the modes referenced by the labels, icons appear. In the photo option from left to right, there's an icon for flash, one for HDR option, one for the live photo mode, one for the timer, and one for camera direction, often called selfie mode. In square mode, the live mode vanishes, and in the pano mode, all of them vanish. The flash is either on or off, or in auto, in which case the camera decides whether or not to use the flash in taking the photograph. HDR, which stands for high dynamic resolution, creates a composite image, in this case from 3 separate exposures. Pulling the bright from the brightest of the 3, the dark from the darkest of the 3, and integrating them with another image with average values. The result often has bright parts that would have been eliminated by the average exposure that emphasized the darks, and correspondingly dark parts that would have been eliminated by an average exposure that emphasized the brights. In the example, the difference is quite subtle. The left side is less blown out, and the right side is brighter and has more detail. The darks are not quite as dense. Live mode is a new mode introduced by Apple into their current range of cameras. In many ways, it's like a GIF, if you're familiar with that. And technically, it's created by having the camera take a single photograph, but capture 1.5 seconds of video before the photograph and 1.5 seconds of video after the photograph, and integrating all 3 of them into a single image that's experienced as a photograph that moves a little bit. The timer sets the camera to take a picture with a delay after the shutter button is pressed. The first setting is off, which is the default setting. The other 2 are 3 seconds and 10 seconds. So it waits either 3 seconds to take the photo or 10 seconds to take the photo. The final category, sometimes called the selfie mode, chooses either the front-facing camera or the rear-facing camera. The one camera is the one that's used for normal modes of photography. The other actually uses the camera that faces the photographer, and thus the title selfie, as it's often used to take pictures, self-portraits from a very close position. The only difference is that the camera that's used for the selfie camera, the one that faces the photographer, is not quite the quality of the other camera. It's a 5-megapixel camera and does not have the features of the other camera, which is a 15-megapixel camera, and so the quality of the selfie mode is not quite as good as the, quote, normal mode. Finally, there are 3 video modes, which we'll not go into here. Notice that not all of the video modes have the same top bar options. Video only has flash and an elapsed time counter. Slow motion only has the time counter, and time-lapse has none of the categories. I'll leave these video categories for you to explore on your own. And now we can take a look at another widely used cell phone camera, one which has many settings similar to those of the iPhone, and some that are different and unique to it, the Samsung Galaxy S6, or S6 Edge, or S6 Edge Plus.